Yo guys, what's up? Welcome to another video, and today we're going to be doing my Premier League predictions for the 2019-20 season. If you do go on to enjoy this video, hit the subscribe button for more football content. And if I do predict your team really low down, don't hate on the channel or me. Just comment what your predictions are in the comments, just so I can see your opinion on where you think everyone would finish. In this prediction video, we will start with 20th place, so I think we'll finish there and then we'll go up in the table. So we'll start from 20th, then go up to 19, then 18, and so on. So without further ado, let's get into these predictions and start with 20th place. In 20th place, I have predicted Brighton. I've predicted them in the relegation zone 2 years in a row, but both times they have stayed up. But the third year, I don't think they'll stay up. They've signed a few decent Championship players. They've signed Matt Clark from Portsmouth, Adam Webster from Bristol City, Neil Maupay from Brentford, and Aaron Moy from Huddersfield on loan. But I just don't think, well, 3 of them players, I believe, haven't played in the Premier League before, so they're unproven in the top league, so we don't know how they're going to do in this top league. Aaron Moy did alright at Huddersfield whilst he was in the Premier League, but I just don't think that would be enough to keep them up. And the current players they sold Anthony Knockaert, who was a really good player for them. And I just don't see them staying up this third year, to be honest. 19th place, I have predicted Norwich, the Championship winners from last season. They've signed a few decent players. Ralph Farman from Schalke, who is a very good keeper, but to be honest, I can see him turning into the next Rico from last season, to be honest. I don't know why, but I just don't think he'll do as well in the Premier League as he has done in the Bundesliga for Schalke. They had a very poor season last year. Don't know if he actually played or not, but I just don't think they'll do that well. They've also signed a few more players like Patrick Roberts on loan from Man City, and a few other guys that, to be honest, I haven't actually heard of. They have got a decent few players that they've kept in the club, but I just don't see them staying up this season, and I just see them getting relegated. In 18th place, in the final relegation place, I have put Sheffield United, the runners-up in the Championship. They've had a pretty similar transfer window that Cardiff did, and they finished 18th, so I thought, well, Cardiff have had a similar transfer window to Sheffield United, and they finished runners-up in the Championship. I think they'll finish 18th. Now, they've signed a few decent players in the Championship, like Brighton. They've signed Callum Robinson from Preston, Luke Freeman from QPR, Ollie McBurney from Swansea, Dean Henderson, who they had last season in Championship, Ben Osborne from Nottingham Forest. They've signed a few other players that have been in the Premier League, like Lise Mousset from Bournemouth, Phil Jagielka and Mo Besic, both from Everton. But I just don't see them staying up this year. I'm pretty sure most people would agree with me. Maybe they predict them a bit lower, but I think 18th is about right for Sheffield United. In 17th, I put Newcastle. The biggest loss, to be honest, for them is 1, Salomon Rondon, and 2, Rafa Benitez. They've got in Steve Bruce, who's an alright manager, and I think he'll do just enough to keep them up. He's made a few decent signings. He's brought in Joe Linton from Hoffenheim, Jetro Willems from Frankfurt, St. Maximin from Nice, and those 3 signings I think are pretty decent, and they've still got a few decent players in their club that I think will help them keep them up, like Fabian Schär, their centre-back. They've managed to keep him, who I thought maybe could be Maguire's replacement potentially, but they've still got a decent team, and I think they'll just about do enough to stay. I think they will. I think the relegation zone, like 20th to like 16th, will be really tight. In 16th, I predicted Aston Villa. This is the highest Championship team from last season I've put in my predictions. So 3 Championship teams, quite low, but people are tipping them to be the next Fulham, but I think they'll be able to stay up. They've signed around 12 players, but some of their players are half decent. They've signed Tom Heaton from Burnley, who has loads of Premier League experience, and I think he's a pretty decent keeper. They signed Tyrone Mings, who they had last season for half the year, who was pretty decent for them. And they've also signed a few players like Douglas Luiz, who's a good young talent, Trezeguet, who I've heard good things about, Matt Targett from Southampton, Wesley from Club Brugge, and those signings I think will be able to keep them up, and I think they will be able to finish in 16th. But they will be close to the relegation, but I think they'll have just enough points to be able to stay up. In 15th, I think will be Crystal Palace. They have sold Wan-Bissaka, who is a big loss for them, but they have managed to keep Wilfried Zaha. They've also signed a couple decent players, Gary Cahill, who will bring loads of experience to the club, Victor Camarasa, who was at Cardiff last year on loan. They've signed him on loan this year, who I think was really good for Cardiff, so can't see him not being as good for Crystal Palace. So I think they'll manage to, I think they'll do a bit worse than last year, but they'll do enough to stay up pretty comfortably. In 14th, I predicted Burnley. I don't see why people are predicting them to get relegated. Like, they've signed Jay Rodriguez, who's pretty decent. They've also signed Danny Drinkwater for half the season on loan. He's a really good player, but just didn't get the game time at Chelsea. And the only real player they've sold is Tom Heaton, but they've still got players like Nick Pope and Joe Hart in goal, so I can't see an issue for them to be near relegation. The only reason they did quite bad is because they had that Europa League qualifier matches at the start of the season, and because they don't have this year, I think they'll do much better, and I think they'll be able to stay out pretty comfortably in 14th. 13th, I predicted Southampton. It will be their first season with Hasenhüttl, and I think he's a pretty decent manager. He managed to get RB Leipzig some decent finishes in the Bundesliga, so I don't see why they can't finish like 13th in the Prem. They signed Che Adams, who's done well in pre-season. Danny Ings, they've bought on a permanent deal, I believe, and they've only really sold like Charlie Austin and Matt Targett, who wasn't getting much game time anyways. So I think they'll do alright. I think they'll do much better than last year, and I think they will finish in 13th. In 12th, I predicted Watford. I think it'll be a comfortable mid-table finish for Watford. They've only really signed Danny Welbeck and Craig Dawson, who aren't the best of signings, but I think Danny Welbeck will help their attack a bit. They haven't really sold anyone too crucial to their team, so I think they will be fine. Also, I'm looking forward to see Ismail Assar on that left side. I think he'll do alright for them, score a couple of goals which help them achieve mid-table. 11th, I predicted Bournemouth. I think they'll easily be around mid-table. I think they could challenge for top 10 with the team that I predicted 10th and the team that I predicted 9th. But they have signed a few decent players. Harry Wilson on loan from Liverpool. Philip Billing, I think, is alright. And Dan Juma, I'm looking forward to see from Club Brugge. They have sold a couple players like Tyrone Mings and stuff, but they weren't really going to play for them, so I think they'll be fine in 11th. Moving on to the top 10 now, and I think Leicester will finish 10th. The reason I've predicted them 10th is because I was going to predict them high up in like 8th or 7th potentially, but they have lost Harry Maguire and didn't really replace him. They brought in Jose Perez, James Justin, who are two decent players, and they've also signed Dennis Praet and Yuri Tielemans, who are both decent midfielders. But that Harry Maguire loss is maybe going to cost them a few positions in the league, so that's why I think they'll finish 10th. In 9th place, I predicted West Ham. They've had an alright window. They've managed to sign Sebastian Haller from Frankfurt, who had a decent season in the Bundesliga. They have lost Arnautovic, and Nasri, I guess, was alright. But I think keeping like players like Anderson and a few of their defenders is pretty decent, like Diop. They've also got Yarmolenko back from injury, who I think will do pretty well. Declan Rice, I think, will have another decent season, so I think they'll comfortably finish top 10. But Bournemouth might be able to challenge them, maybe, potentially. Now, in 8th place, I predicted Wolves, and if they weren't in Europa League this season, I honestly think they could challenge for top 6. But they have signed a few decent players. Patrick Cutrone from AC Milan, Vallejo on loan from Real Madrid, and they permanently signed Raul Jimenez from Benfica, who was amazing for them last season. I don't think they'll finish top 7 because they have that Europa League Thursday night football, which may affect them. They don't have the best depth in the Premier League, so I think they may struggle a bit, but I think they'll comfortably finish top 10, only be a few points behind the top 6, and I think that Europa League may cost them a top 6 place, to be honest. In 7th place and best of the rest, I've put Everton. Now, they've had probably the best window in the whole Premier League. They haven't signed the most players, they haven't signed the least players. They've signed a decent amount of players that are actually pretty decent. Lossell will be a good backup keeper for Pickford. Gomez, they've signed permanently from Barca, who was good for them last year. Fabian Delph played at Man City, so he could be really good for them. Gbanim, that's definitely not how you pronounce his name, but he could be alright. Moise Kean, a new striker, which they desperately needed last year, and they finally got it, and he's a really good player, and he's quite young as well. Sidibe on loan, who could be a decent right back, and Iwobi as well from Arsenal, which I didn't see happening at all. So I'm really surprised that they've signed those decent players like Keane and Iwobi, but I think they'll only be a few points off who I'm predicting 6th and 5th. And I think, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they get top 6 this year. But we'll have to wait and see. I'm predicting them 7th, just so I have a better chance of getting it correct. Because I do think the top 6 will stay as the top 6 this year. But I honestly have a feeling that Everton might challenge for top 5. In 6th place, I predicted Chelsea. There's not much to talk about. They've signed Pulisic and Kovacic on a permanent deal. But the big loss is Eden Hazard. He's gone to Real Madrid. That would be a huge loss for them. David Luiz has also gone, which is quite a big loss for them. So they're going to have to play like Zuma or someone else like Christensen at centre-back. But I think they'll do enough to finish top 6. They have got Champions League football. I think they may get put down into the Europa League by finishing 3rd in their UCL group, which will affect them even more in the second half of the season. So I have a feeling they're not going to have a great season. Frank Lampard, as a new manager, I think could be one of the first managers to get sacked. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. In 5th place and just missing out on the Champions League, I have put Man United. They signed Harry Maguire after 1 year of trying to get him. He's a pretty decent signing, will hopefully sort out their defensive issues. Wan-Bissaka from Crystal Palace, who was an amazing right back last year, did well in pre-season, so I'm looking forward to seeing him at Man United. They also signed Daniel James from Swansea, who's really pacey. Don't know how he'll fit into the starting 11, but we'll have to wait and see. The only real big losses for them are Ander Herrera, Antonio Valencia, who they've replaced with Wan-Bissaka, and Lukaku, who is... well, he played for them quite a bit last season. They've sold him, didn't get a replacement, and that's why I don't think they'll finish in the top 4. I thought maybe they'd finish top 4 if they kept Lukaku, but nah, they haven't kept him. Didn't even get a replacement like Mandzukic or Inaki Williams, so doesn't look like they're going to be finishing top 4, but they could finish quite close to who I'm predicting 4th. In 4th place and getting into the Champions League places, I think will be Arsenal. They've missed out on the last 2 seasons, but this year I think they'll be able to do it. They've sorted out their defensive issues, I believe, by signing David Luiz and Tierney from Celtic. Ceballos is coming on loan, which could be a decent midfielder option for them. And Nicolas Pepe from Lille, who had an amazing season last year, is now playing for them. So I think him, Aubameyang and Lacazette at front would be amazing. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. And I think they will finish 4th quite comfortably. Now moving on to 3rd place, this is probably the most controversial position in this whole prediction video. I predicted Liverpool to finish 3rd, and the reason being is because they've signed Adrian, who's not even going to play. He'll play like 1 FA Cup game, they'll get knocked out by like West Brom again. And Harvey Elliott has also signed, won't get any game time. And this other random 3rd choice goalie they've signed they've sold a few players that didn't actually play, and to be honest, because they may focus on trying to win the Champions League 2 years in a row, I think they may struggle in the... Well, they're not going to struggle in the Prem, but I don't think they'll do as well. And I think they won't even get top 2 this year. And I'm probably one of the only people that are predicting them here, but I honestly think they'll finish third. I'll either be spot on or completely wrong with this prediction, but I guess we'll have to find out. But I'm risking this prediction to see if I get it right or not, and everyone else gets it wrong. And in second place, just missing out on the title, I think will be Tottenham. And the reason I'm predicting them above Liverpool is because they're deadline day business. Lo Celso from Real Betis is a good signing. Ryan Sessegnon will help their subs bench potentially, or he may start at left back. We'll have to wait and see. And Ndombele as well, who's a great midfielder. And they've kept hold of Eriksen, who had rumours that he was maybe leaving. They've still got Harry Kane. Hopefully he'll be fully fit for them this season, who I think will also get the Golden Boot potentially. And I think they'll have a very good season. I don't think they'll do well in the Champions League this year, which could help them because they won't have midweek European games, unlike the team I'm predicting first and the team that I'm predicting third, or predicted third. They have sold Trippier, but I don't think that'll be an issue because they've got Aurier still there and Walker-Peters. So I think they'll do alright and finish second. And in first place, I predicted Man City. They've signed a few decent players. Rodri from Atletico Madrid, who's going to be a Fernandinho replacement. João Cancelo from Juve, who's going to be an amazing right back. They have sold Kompany, but I think Walker will be an amazing centre-back. He'll be really pacey and do really well there with Cancelo on the right. They have sold Delph as well, who wasn't getting much game time. They got Angelino now, who will be another left-back option if Mendy and Zinchenko get an injury. And to be honest, I think they'll run away with this one. Not as much as they did in 2017-18, but I think they'll win by like 6 or 7 points this year. And I think they'll comfortably win the title. I think they'll do well in the Champions League as well. Maybe finish in the semi-final or maybe get to the final and win it. We'll have to wait and see. But that is going to end my predictions. Comment your predictions below. And do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? What would you change in my predictions? Let me know in the comments. But thanks for watching this video. Like and subscribe for more football content. And I'll see you guys for another video or live stream very soon. Goodbye.